Let me paint you a picture of suburban terror. It's 2006. A red Mustang GT pulls up to a stoplight next to what looks like a boring family SUV. The kind of car that screams, "I gave up on life and bought something practical." The light turns green, and the SUV disappears. Gone. The Mustang driver is left staring at the taillights of what he thought was a grocery getter, questioning every decision that led him to this moment. That SUV? The Chevrolet TrailBlazer SS, a 2-ton brick with the heart of a Corvette. And believe it or not, this wasn't a tuner build. This came straight from the factory. Today, we're going to explore how GM built one of the greatest sleeper concepts of the 2000s, and then sabotaged it with engineering decisions that would make a first-year mechanic cry. Here's what GM was thinking. Take the TrailBlazer, a perfectly adequate mid-size SUV that your dentist drives, and stuff a Corvette engine inside it. The LS2, 395 horsepower, 400 pound-feet of torque, in a vehicle designed to haul soccer equipment and Costco runs. This wasn't just performance. This was automotive comedy. Now, GM had done this before. Remember the GMC Typhoon and Cyclone from 1992? Turbocharged V6s in trucks that embarrassed Ferraris? The TrailBlazer SS was supposed to be the spiritual successor, except this time, they used a naturally aspirated V8 with Corvette DNA, and unlike the Typhoon's complicated turbo setup, this was supposed to be simple, reliable, bulletproof. Spoiler alert, it wasn't. Let's talk about that engine, because it's genuinely impressive. The LS2, 5.967 liters, 364 cubic inches of aluminum V8 Fury, based on the same LS2 architecture used in the Corvette C6, sharing block and head design, but adapted for truck duty. GM took the heart of America's sports car and transplanted it into a family hauler. That's not just bold, that's borderline insane. But wait, if it's the same engine, why does the Corvette make 400 horsepower and the TrailBlazer only makes 395? Great question. GM used a different intake manifold, taller, more restrictive, optimized for low-end torque instead of high RPM power. The exhaust manifolds were more restrictive. And here's the kicker. They used a mechanical belt-driven fan instead of electric fans. Because apparently, the TrailBlazer needed to tow things. Like the owner's dignity, after the transmission explodes. So how fast was this grocery getter with a Corvette heart? Car and driver tested it at 5.5 seconds to 60 miles per hour. MotorWeek got 5.8. The quarter mile, 14.1 seconds at 98 miles per hour. For context, that's faster than a Mustang GT of the same era. In an SUV weighing over 4,500 pounds. Let that sink in. Speaking of weight, 4,496 pounds for the rear-wheel drive version, 4,662 pounds for all-wheel drive. That's over 2 tons. 2 tons. GM essentially said, let's take a Corvette engine and make it move a small apartment building. And somehow, it worked. Now, the obvious competitor was the Jeep Grand Cherokee SRT8, the Hemi-powered monster with 420 horsepower. And yes, the SRT8 was faster, 0 to 60 in about 4.8 seconds. But here's where it gets interesting. The TrailBlazer SS started at $31,255. The SRT8, $39,995. That's roughly $8,000 cheaper for the Chevy. Almost the same performance, at bargain prices, Detroit math at its finest. And if you want real comedy, compare it to the Germans. A Porsche Cayenne Turbo in 2006 cost around $89,000. The TrailBlazer SS did 0 to 60 only half a second slower, for less than 40% of the price, $57,000 cheaper. You could buy 2 TrailBlazer SS trucks and still have money left over for the transmission rebuilds you'll inevitably need. Now, GM didn't just throw an engine in and call it a day, they actually engineered the chassis. The high-performance vehicle operations team, the same people who worked on Corvettes, tuned this thing. John Heinrici, nicknamed Heinrocket, a multi-time SCCA champion and GM performance legend, along with Tom Wallace, the Corvette chief engineer, took this SUV to the Nürburgring. Yes, the Nürburgring. For an SUV, they lowered it 1 inch. 25% stiffer springs, Bilstein monotube shocks, 36mm front stabilizer bar. The steering ratio went from 20.3 to 1 down to 16 to 1, making it significantly quicker. The brakes got upgraded too. 12.8-inch discs front and rear, both ventilated. The front pads used a Corvette-derived brake pad compound. Twin piston calipers. Now, they weren't Brembos like the SRT8 had, but they could stop this 2-ton missile from 60 miles per hour in about 119 feet. Not bad for something that weighs more than a small whale. The TrailBlazer SS rolled on exclusive 20-inch polished aluminum wheels, 255/50R20 tires, V-rated for high-speed stability. These weren't your grandmother's all-seasons, these were serious rubber. The stance was aggressive, the look was mean. And for 2006, 20-inch wheels on a factory truck was genuinely impressive. The all-wheel drive system deserves special attention. It used a Torsen T3 center differential. Full-time all-wheel drive, not some part-time nonsense. Normal torque split, 33% front, 67% rear. But it could send up to 45% to the front or 75% to the rear depending on conditions. The rear axle, a 9.5-inch AAM unit with an Eaton limited slip differential. Final drive ratio of 4.10 to 1. This thing was engineered to put power down. And if you're enjoying learning about GM's greatest hits and tragic misses, smash that subscribe button and turn on notifications. Because every Wednesday, we dive deep into the weird, wonderful, and sometimes catastrophic decisions that shaped automotive history. Now, let's talk about where GM completely dropped the ball. So far, this sounds amazing, right? Corvette engine, Nürburgring tuned suspension, all-wheel drive, great price. What could possibly go wrong? Well, buckle up, because GM found two spectacular ways to sabotage their own creation, and both of them involve basic engineering oversights that would make a high school shop teacher weep. Problem number 1, the transmission. GM paired this 400 pound-feet of torque Corvette engine with the Hydramatic 4L70E, a 4-speed automatic, in 2006, when competitors were already using 5- and 6-speed units. But that's not even the real issue. The real issue is that the 4L70E was basically a beefed-up version of the 4L60E, a transmission designed for much lighter trucks with much less power. The 4L70E is often criticized by owners as the weak link of the entire package, and they're not wrong. Common failures include 3/4 clutch packs burning up, the 2/4 band wearing out, the sunshell cracking, forward sprag breaking, valve body degradation. Basically, every component that experiences stress, which in a 4,600 pound truck with 400 pound-feet of torque is every component. How bad is it? The community considers the 4L70E the Achilles heel of the TrailBlazer SS. Tuners warn that it's fundamentally undersized to handle 400 pound-feet of torque in a vehicle weighing nearly 5,000 pounds. Owners who drive aggressively, especially with modifications, report transmission problems with alarming frequency. A proper rebuild with reinforced parts runs $3,000 to $4,000. The popular solution? Swap in a 6L80E 6-speed from newer GM trucks, which costs even more, but at least it won't grenade itself. I'll let that sink in for a moment. GM took a Corvette engine, hired Corvette engineers to tune the suspension, tested it at the Nürburgring, and then paired it with a transmission that can barely handle the power. It's like putting a jet engine on a bicycle with training wheels. The potential is incredible. The execution is questionable. But wait, it gets worse. Problem number 2, oil starvation. And this one is genuinely dangerous. The TrailBlazer SS uses an oil pan with a front-sump design. The pickup tube that feeds oil to the engine sits at the very front of that sump. Now, guess what happens under repeated hard launches or sustained acceleration? The oil, all of it, sloshes to the back of the pan, away from the pickup tube. The engine sucks air instead of oil. And within seconds, your bearings are destroyed. The engineering explanation is simple and infuriating. The front sump oil pan was designed to accommodate the axle tube from the front differential on all-wheel drive models. That tube literally passes through the oil pan. So even the rear-wheel drive trucks got the same compromised pan design, and GM never properly baffled it. Under hard acceleration, the G-forces push oil away from where the pickup tube is located, and the LS2, a magnificent engine, starves for lubrication. The Corvette with the same engine? Rear sump pan. Under acceleration, oil goes to the back, right where the pickup is. No problem. The TrailBlazer SS, front sump with front pickup. Engineering oversight that can destroy a $10,000 engine in seconds. The consequences? Spun rod bearings, main bearing failure, rod knock, and in catastrophic cases, a connecting rod punching through the block. All because GM put the pickup tube at the front of a front sump pan and didn't add adequate baffles. PCM of North Carolina, the company that makes the fix, literally says, it's where GM should have put the pickup tube. They're not wrong. The aftermarket stepped up where GM failed. Solutions include running an extra quart of oil beyond capacity as a band-aid, installing a baffled plate inside the stock pan. The most popular fix? A relocated pickup tube from PCM of North Carolina that moves the pickup to the rear of the sump, where the oil actually is during acceleration. Cost? About $260. For rear-wheel drive models, you can swap in a Corvette C6 rear sump pan, problem solved. Or get a fully baffled aftermarket pan for around $400. So let me get this straight. GM spent money developing a Corvette-derived engine, spent money on Nürburgring testing, spent money on Bilstein suspension, and then saved a few dollars by using an inadequate transmission and a poorly designed oil pan. This is corporate decision-making at its most baffling. Let's build something amazing, and then undermine it with cost-cutting in the places that matter most. Despite these issues, GM built approximately 26,000 TrailBlazer SS trucks between 2006 and 2009. The breakdown? About 10,300 rear-wheel drive, about 16,200 all-wheel drive. Interestingly, all-wheel drive outsold rear-wheel drive every single year. People wanted traction with their Corvette power. The 2006 models had 395 horsepower. 2007 through 2009, 390 horsepower. But here's the thing, the engine didn't change. GM just adopted a new SAE testing standard called J2723 that was more rigorous. Same motor, different paperwork. Don't let anyone tell you the later models are weaker. The TrailBlazer SS died in December 2008 when GM closed the Moraine, Ohio assembly plant. The 2009 model year consisted of just 610 units, according to production data obtained by the owner community. Of those, only 15 were base trim, the stripped-down package without leather or sunroof. 595 had the loaded 3SS package. If you have a 2009 TrailBlazer SS base model, you might own one of the rarest modern GM performance vehicles in existence. And here's a fun fact. There was a Swedish twin. The Saab 97X Aero used the same LS2 engine, same platform, but with Saab badges and a $46,000 price tag. GM built approximately 600 of them total. That's roughly 2% of TrailBlazer SS production. If the TrailBlazer SS is rare, the Saab 97X Aero is basically a unicorn wearing a monocle. Today, the TrailBlazer SS has a passionate community. Forums like tbssowners.com keep the knowledge alive. Popular modifications include cam swaps, headers, and tunes that push power well into the 400s. Some owners have gone forced induction, superchargers and turbos, running 9-second quarter miles. And almost everyone has addressed the oil starvation issue, because they learned the hard way, or from someone who did. Current values? Clean examples with reasonable miles sell for $12,000 to $25,000. Pristine low-mile trucks can touch $30,000 or more. The record at auction was over $38,000 for a 2006 RWD. Project vehicles with needs transmission in the listing, $8,000 to $15,000. The LS platform means parts are everywhere and cheap. Just budget for oil pan modifications and transmission work, and you'll have one of the most entertaining sleepers of the 2000s. The TrailBlazer SS represents everything great and terrible about GM in one package. The ambition to put Corvette power in a family SUV? Brilliant. The execution with Nürburgring testing and proper suspension tuning? Impressive. The decision to use an inadequate transmission and poorly designed oil pan? Peak GM cost-cutting. It's a vehicle that could have been legendary if someone had just spent another few $100s per unit on the right components. The lesson here? Great ideas need complete execution. You can't build a Corvette-powered SUV and then cheap out on the drivetrain. You can't tune suspension at the Nürburgring and ignore oil system dynamics. The TrailBlazer SS proves that potential without follow-through is just expensive disappointment. GM built the platform for greatness, and then got in its own way. Remember the Ram SRT10 we covered last week? The V10 pickup with the Viper engine? That was American excess without apology. Loud, proud, and completely impractical. The TrailBlazer SS is the opposite philosophy. Stealth performance that could have been practical. If only GM had matched the ambition of the concept with the quality of the execution. But here's the thing, despite all its flaws, owners love these trucks. They know about the transmission, they know about the oil starvation, they fix the issues and enjoy the experience, because at its core, the TrailBlazer SS delivers exactly what it promised. Corvette performance, SUV practicality, sleeper anonymity. It just requires more maintenance than it should. And maybe that's the most GM thing ever. Next time on Car Chronicles, we're staying in sleeper territory, but crossing over to something completely unexpected. Over on Supercar Chronicles, we've been exploring European exotics, and there's one American machine that beat them at their own game for a fraction of the price. 2 channels, 1 mission. The stories Detroit doesn't want you to remember. Check out Supercar Chronicles in the description for more performance insanity. So, would you daily drive a TrailBlazer SS knowing you need to fix the oil pan and budget for transmission work? Or would you rather have the brutal honesty of the SRT8, the practical sleeper or the obvious muscle? Let me know in the comments. And if you haven't already, check out Supercar Chronicles for the exotic side of performance history. Same sarcasm, different price brackets. This is Car Chronicles, where we celebrate the brilliant disasters that make automotive history worth remembering. Subscribe, hit that bell, and we'll see you next time.